This is a combination of two different things. And so one is culture and the other is talent. So I'm going to explain both in a more operationalized manner. So it's not just these buzzwords. All right. So what is culture? So culture is the rules of reinforcement in a business. Okay. So what are the things that govern what gets rewarded and what gets punished? And so if you think about culture, there's probably 100 or 1,000 behaviors that exist within any business or any environment, right? When we learn a culture as a society, there are things that we do. You hold a door. That's one thing that you do and it gets rewarded. And if you don't do it, it gets punished, right? If you cut somebody off in traffic, it gets punished, right? And so each of these things are things that get rewarded or punished, and that's what creates culture. But within every business, there's kind of a subculture within the larger culture where you have more and more nuance of things that are your preferences as a business owner. But if people are not working to your preferences, then it means the culture you have, the rules that govern reinforcement, are not being adequately exercised. And the way that you reinforce culture is, one, who you hire and who you fire. So who you allow to exist in the business tells more to your team about what you think is acceptable. Number two is the behavior that you do not allow to change. So if someone does something good and you don't reward it, then they learn that they don't get rewarded for doing that thing. On the flip side, if someone shows up 5 minutes late to a meeting and no one says anything, then you teach everyone it's okay to be late. And so the first issue with his business was that there's probably a culture of non-performance. And we have to get very specific with what makes somebody not perform. And sometimes it's only 2 or 3 behaviors. Oftentimes it's like 20 or 30. And you have to be able to observe what are the things that makes me not like my team and what would I rather them do instead. And so I use the format of start, stop, keep. So what I want you to start doing that you're not doing, what I want you to stop doing that you are doing, and what do you need to keep doing that I'm going to keep reinforcing? It's a very simple way to give feedback that I really like. Now, what about talent? Because that's the second half of this. So one is the rules, right? The talent is the people who are actually doing the behaviors, doing the stuff. And so from a talent perspective, a lot of businesses can't expand anymore, not because they don't have the model to do it, but they don't have the ability to execute on the plan. And the ability to execute on the plan comes down to the quality of the people that you have in the business. And I can tell you this firsthand, you probably don't have high enough bar for who should be working for you. And I say this for myself too. The moment I increase the quality of the people who work with me, the more money I make, right? And so what's really interesting is that I think that this is one of the greatest arbitrage opportunities that exist in business to this day still, which is that the 50% mark for a role is $75,000 a year. Now, for you to pay 90th percentile, it might be $115,000 per year. Right? Now you might be like, wow, that's a big difference. But here's the thing, is that this person is probably like 5 times more effective than this one, but they only cost 30% more. That's a great deal. That's a good investment. And so at this point, all I really try and do is just find rainmakers. I want people who are exceptional, who are obsessed with this task. Now, how do you differentiate the people who are good versus not? I'll give you a tactic around this. So when you're interviewing, I like to know what someone's doing in their off time. And if what they do in their off time is not what I want them to do in their full time, then they're not going to be full time, right? They're going to be always moonlighting to their other thing. And so I'd rather say, like, what are you obsessed with? And I like asking that question. What are your extracurricular activities? Now, if they're like, honestly, all I do, let's say I'm hiring a videographer, they're like, all I do is video stuff. Like, this is what I'm really passionate about. This is what I spend my time watching on YouTube, is like, how do I improve the lighting? How do I improve the audio? How do I improve the sets? Like, this is the stuff that I like really am obsessed about. I probably know that that person's gonna do a pretty good job, because also if I tell them, hey, you need to improve this stuff, they're like, great. I love this feedback. I want to get better. Now, if somebody's like, oh, I love, pickleball and using, and working out, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, is that the thing that you're obsessed with? And so asking that question in a couple ways in an interview will tease out whether someone is spending their discretionary effort and time on the talent or the skill that they need to win in their role in the business. And so that's on the pick side, right? The third element of this, here we go, is training. So if you have rules that govern reinforcement in the business, okay, this is what we like, this is what we don't like, and then you get really good people in, you still can have people who have potential versus actual. And so obviously the higher up in the business, the more you're hiring for actual, the less you're hiring for potential. The lower someone is in the business, the more you're hiring for potential and less for actual. And so when we're picking somebody, it's like, I'll pick somebody who's just generally intelligent and has work ethic over somebody who might be more experienced in their career, but doesn't demonstrate the same level of intelligence, because I think the smart person will be able to catch up to that dumber person really quickly and then pass them. And so what does training look like? And so training in the business, in order to execute, I want to be really clear here, the reason that your plan isn't working is because no one's doing the plan. So why aren't they doing the plan? These are the reasons, right? And so from a training perspective, it typically comes down to observing the details. I'm gonna give you a story about this. So I was meeting with a different business, which is a solar sales company that was doing, multiple eight figures, which is great, good sized business. And the founder was telling me that they were struggling to develop a sales leadership within the business. And he said they did an offsite and they came up with like their 6 pillars of sales leadership. And it was like accountability, time management, blah, 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 right? They had like 6 things. I don't remember what they were. And he said after the 2-day event where everyone came together and agreed on those principles, they went back and no one changed their behavior. And I said, okay, well, what does accountability mean in terms of behavior? What is like, show me what someone who's holding someone accountable does. How would I know that accountability had occurred? Right. And so what happens there is he was like,